Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again. Okay. Oh, okay, people. I'm thinking I'm on the other channel. Hold on. Let me get my stuff together. Let me get it together, people. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. There we go. All right. So thank you all for tuning in, right? Thank you all for subscribing. For those of you who have not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel. All right? Because we're going to get it popping on here with these true crime stories. Now, I told you all the other day we're going to be talking about Sonny Bono because though they said he died in a tree collision while he was skiing, many people speculate that he actually was assassinated. Okay, even an FBI agent came out and said that he was murdered. All right, so we're going to talk about it and see what we think about it after we go over these receipts. Okay. Hello, Silent D, Bossy, AB the Great, Sweet Pea, Inspired by Nature. Okay, Fight for Black, Nathalie, Craig, Melanated Brown, RG3, One Who Cares. Thank you all for tuning back in. All right, so here we go. Now, the 62-year-old Sonny Bono and his fourth wife, Mary, were visiting the Heavenly Ski Resort, located at the Nevada-California border, some 55 miles south of Reno, Nevada, with their young son and daughter. Now, the accident occurred when Bono left his family to ski alone on the afternoon of January the 5th. He was reported missing several hours later, and his body was found that evening. Now, police say Bono had skied into a wooded area and hit a tree. The cause of death was massive head injuries. Now, coincidentally, Bono's death occurred less than a week after another high-profile accident killed Michael Kennedy, the son of the late U.S. Attorney General and U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy. Okay, he was also killed on the ski slopes, but the slopes he was killed on were the ones in Aspen, Colorado, where he also supposedly hit a tree. Okay, this was less than a week prior. Now, one thing you don't often hear about is people dying from ski accidents where they collide with a tree, but you especially don't hear about two famous people, two well-known people, right, from political backgrounds, colliding with the tree less than a week apart. Now, born Salvatore Bono in Detroit on February the 16th of 1935, Bono moved to Los Angeles when he was 7 years old. Now, as a young adult, he became a songwriter and a singer at Specialty Records. He later teamed up with the prominent songwriter Phil Spector and sang backup for the Righteous Brothers. Now, while married to his first wife, Donna Rankin, Bono met the 16-year-old Sherilyn Sarkisian. They made several recordings together, but struck gold with their 1965 mega hit, I Got You Babe. Bono divorced Rankin and in 1969 had a child, Chastity, now Chaz, with Cher. They later were married. And in August of 1971, the couple's TV show, The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, premiered, featuring the tall, dark-haired Cher, decked out in spangled designer outfits, and the mustachioed Bono playing the straight man in bell-bottom pants. Now, the show's run lasted until 1974, when the couple split amid rampant gossip about extramarital affairs. A latecomer to politics, Sonny admitted that he voted for the first time at the age of 54. Bono got his start after he became frustrated with the bureaucratic hassle involved in erecting a new sign at the Italian restaurant that he owned in Palm Springs, a city in Southern California's desert with a current population of some 40,000 residents. Now, he was elected mayor of the city in 1988, and 4 years later ran unsuccessfully in the Republican primary for a seat in the U.S. Senate. In 1994, Bono won a seat in the House of Representatives as part of a sweeping Republican victory in the House led by Speaker Newt Gingrich. Now, as a lawmaker, Bono struck closely to conservative agenda, but he was known to reach out across party lines, forming friendships with such prominent liberals as Barney Frank, an openly gay Democratic congressman from Massachusetts. Re-elected in 1996, Bono continued his campaign to extend copyright laws and repair the damage done to the Salton Sea, a giant lake in Southern California's Colorado desert, by large-scale salt mining operations in the region. Now, after his death, his widow, Mary Bono, completed the remainder of her husband's term in the House. Okay, now this is what they say happened. You need mods on your channel now, Queen. Yes, absolutely, and I will do that as soon as I conclude the broadcast, beloved. Thank you. Let me write that down because you know I'll forget. Okay? So, now that's the first story when they say that he hit the tree, right? So let's go into some more of the information. Because it seems that Sonny Bono had also made some political enemies. All right? California lawmaker killed in apparent accident at Heavenly. Ex-singer's body found after he had been reported missing. Now, Bono was on vacation with his wife, Mary Whitaker, and their two children, 6-year-old Chiana and 9-year-old Chisar, when the accident occurred. They were all from Palm Springs, California. Now, Dave Horseman, a bartender at the Fox and Hound in State Line, said that he heard rumors of Bono's death before it was even confirmed. Now, he said ski patrol officers came in late for food, and he saw rescue helicopters making night runs above the resort. A Douglas County Sheriff's Patrol unit was parked at the entrance to the Boulder Lift, one of the two lifts at Kingsbury Grade on the Nevada side of the resort. Now, Fitzhenry's funeral home in Carson City said the body was being turned over to the coroner for further investigation. So Bono, a Republican and an avid skier, was first elected to the House in 1994, then re-elected in 1996. Okay, so they're going to talk about the same thing with what I basically already told you. But here's what's interesting, that they were saying that he was dead before they even had confirmed it, right? And also, like I told you, basically the same thing had supposedly, so it was premeditated. Sounds like it, right? But also the thing to note is that they say the same thing happened to Michael Kennedy just less than a week before that. So now let's talk about what the FBI agent had to say. And then I'm going to play a video where he's going against a debate. You know, he's having a discussion with then Attorney General Janet Reno about how they treated the Branch Davidians, you know, David Koresh in Waco, Texas, how they handled that situation. And things got a bit heated. Okay, FBI agent claims Bono was murdered. A former FBI agent has claimed that the 1960s pop star Sonny Bono was assassinated. Ted Gunderson said that Cher's former husband was targeted in a politically motivated assassination in January of 1998. However, Bono's autopsy concluded that he died of injuries sustained after crashing into a tree while skiing at the Heavenly Ski Resort in Nevada. Now, someone says it's nonsense. Listen to this. It's nonsense for anyone to now try to suggest that Bono died after crashing into a tree. This is what the FBI agent, Ted Gunderson, told America's Globe. He said it's nonsense for anyone to try to pull that off and say that he died because he crashed into a tree. First of all, Sonny Bono was an avid skier. Okay, very skilled at skiing. Now, I mean, not that the accident couldn't have happened, but it just didn't seem likely to many people. All right, and we'll get to some more receipts in a minute. Now, he says, this is what the FBI agent says, there's zero evidence in the autopsy report to show that such an accident even happened. Instead, there's powerful proof that he was, in fact, assassinated. There was an evil plot that was carried out to almost perfection by ruthless assassins. Okay? Gunderson said hitmen were hired by top U.S. officials. They moved in on him because Bono, a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, was believed to be about to expose an international drug and weapons ring. His claims are reportedly backed by several top forensic experts. So they had receipts. They had receipts, okay? So now listen to this. This is what another person reported. That's what the FBI agent said, but someone else says this. Okay. And I believe this man is dead now who said this, by the name of James Morrison, because it says 1952 to 2018, so likely he's passed. But he said this: my late wife used to work for the USDA as a processed food inspector. With all the paperwork they filed when food scares happened, it was amazing how they could back check and isolate the cause. You know, like when they have recalls on food and saying that there's salmonella or things like that in it. Now, Sonny Bono, the singer turned congressman, would sit in on these panels questioning the USDA officials. The wife would relay how the USDA hated Sonny Bono. Now, because he would state that he didn't understand all the technical lingo that they freely spouted. Could they answer in simple English, he would ask. Whatever the USDA was trying to slide by him, he would expose it. Bono might ask, well, how do you come to this conclusion? Why wouldn't you do this? Or why wouldn't you do this? Because it's more cost effective. Others on the panel normally gave the USDA a free pass, but not Sonny. Sonny's simple questions affected the USDA policy and filtered down to the wife. Oh, she loved it. Now, Bono would come across as a lightweight due to his persona with Cher and their TV show, but he wasn't anything like that. He was a businessman and used marketing to make Cher become a one-name star. Now, when Bono sat on the House Crime Committee, he was relentless in pursuing Attorney General Janet Reno. He was relentless in pursuing Janet Reno's order to use CS gas at the Waco compound, claiming she had used exhaustive studies. Many people perished after the CS canisters were fired into the compound, including many children. Bono was insinuating that the fumes incapacitated them from fleeing. Now, let me tell you something about that. If you all know, so he wasn't listening to the bullshit and didn't let them tell him anything. Exactly, Sweet Pea, exactly. Now, why was no one arrested? Because they said it was an accident and he ran into a tree. That's the story they put out. Now, clearly a cover-up. But at the end of the day, listen, those of you who know about the Waco, Texas incident, and they tried to tell everybody, or they did tell everybody, that David Koresh killed himself and all the people who were in there with him, the Branch Davidians, I'm going to tell you this. When I was going to school for criminal justice, one of my professors who worked with law enforcement also said that herself and showed us footage that, you know, the FBI were the ones who were the ones there who killed those people. They set the compound on fire. There was gas canisters thrown into there. And this is what Sonny Bono was going in on Janet Reno about. Because basically, he was telling her that was dangerous for her to have done. Why would you have resorted to that tactic? And especially knowing that there were children in there. And she said that she had studied, talked to people who did studies on this or whatever. But he accused her of only talking to one person and wanted to know why she didn't have further information. He also wanted to know, how did you not know this was dangerous after all the information and research that you're supposed to have done? He said that he figured this all out within a day or two. So you mean to tell me you didn't know these things? This is basically what he was telling her. Okay, so he said that prevented them from fleeing. He said, I find it impossible. This is what Sonny said to her. I find it impossible to believe that the most powerful law firm in the country, the Department of Justice, at your disposal, you cannot find this information out that I found out in one day with just 2 staff members. So I am sorry to say, Madam Attorney General, that I think you failed here. Now, Sonny Bono reputedly died skiing into a tree 1 week after the death of the Kennedy clan member had also died in a similar skiing accident. Now, the pathologist at Washoe County in Nevada listed the cause of death as craniocerebral injuries due to blunt force trauma. So under normal circumstances, this would suffice. Bono was skiing alone and plowed into a tree, so that would seem plausible. However, Bono was a very experienced skier. Though his face received severe impact, his ski goggles did not. Now, And when the face was suddenly halted by such force, or when the face is suddenly halted by such force, the back of the brain tears away from the skull. But this wasn't the case. The death certificate says the cause of death becomes, even with the death certificate's cause of death, it becomes more suspect when one delves further into the injuries or lack thereof. Could blunt force trauma be administered without a tree being involved? If so, this would mean it was murder. Wouldn't there have been motive to track down a good skier? Maybe Bono's promised 10 days before his death to look into material by investigator Bob Fletcher, which included videotapes of many high-ranking government and military officials. Fletcher would have included videotapes of high-ranking government officials supposedly skimming off millions of dollars from arms and drug deals in Central America and Southeast Asia. This likely proved to be an incentive for someone to kill him. Further, pathological questions needed to be answered. There was no neck trauma that was standard with this type of injury, nor was the rest of the body injured, like bruises to the torso, the legs, the knees, no broken wrist or arms, signs of skier bracing for impact, nor were there imprints of tree bark and needles. Now, as mentioned before, the goggles were not damaged at all in the slightest, but Bono suffered a black eye. Now, how is that possible, people? That makes no sense. We know that when people go skiing, they have on their goggles. His goggles were not broken, bent, twisted, scratched, anything, but yet he had a black eye. So how did this happen if he was supposed to have on goggles as he was skiing downhill, down a slope, and headed directly into a tree? Also, how come there was no neck injuries? You would have to know that if you're skiing at full speed and you hit a tree, you would absolutely have broken arms and other bones, because you would likely put your hands up to brace yourself, try to stop the impact or something, and that would likely break your hands, your wrists, your arms, or whatever. There was no broken bones in his knees or anything. Because, when you're skiing, you bend your knees forward, right? Those of you who know how to ski. So anyway, the goggles were not damaged, but Bono suffered a black eye. Swollen lips mean that death wasn't instantaneous, as the heart has to be pumping to cause swelling. So he didn't die instantly like you normally would if you collided with a tree while you're skiing downhill at a high rate of speed. Now, with that all being said, Mary Bono was anything but happy being married. She was then elected to her husband's seat in Congress. She claimed that Sonny's abuse of painkillers affected his judgment and contributed to the tree crash. So she co-signed the BS. Okay, Sonny's mother would dispute this claim. His mother was like, nah, he wasn't on abuse of painkillers. Okay, but the wife, I found it interesting. Now, the official record continues to show Sonny Bono died of a skiing accident, but, however, evidence shows otherwise. Just so you know. So with that all being said, I want you all to listen. That and says that he's addicted to painkillers. That's what she said. I thought that was kind of shady for her to even bring that up, even if it had been true. But I don't think that it was. But she was given his seat in Congress. Some people say that she was unhappy with him in the marriage, right, for numerous of reasons. Now, could she have been a woman scorned? I don't know. But I find it very suspicious that she was given his seat in Congress after he died, and she came out and said that, oh, he was addicted to painkillers, and that's likely what caused him to plow into that tree. If she thought that he was addicted to painkillers, or knew he was, and she thought that would cloud his judgment, why would she let him go off skiing by himself? She was at the resort also. But he separated from her and the children, and conveniently, after he separated from them, he turns up dead. All sounds suspect and suspicious to me. All sounds suspect and suspicious. Now, I'm going to share my screen so we can view this footage. Well, before I do that, let me read about this alleged cover-up. This is another article where they say the cover-up of Sonny Bono's murder. So they say it is now news in Australia that new evidence has turned up that California Congressman Sonny Bono was in fact murdered and did not die in a skiing accident as we've been told. Although he was an American whose job was to represent Americans as far as the mainstream United States press is concerned, this news is unworthy of attention to the people in the United States. Basically saying that the mainstream media, which I love to call and deem the biggest propagandist machine in the world, said they didn't think this information was noteworthy to tell to the Americans, that there was new evidence that came forward. Because they kept the story at he died because he collided with a tree. But let me continue. Now, this is the same American press, of course, that has never breathed the slightest hint of suspicion that there might have been foul play involved with the experienced skier, Sonny Bono, who was reported to have slammed into a tree at the Heavenly Ski Resort in Nevada on January the 5th of 1998. There were no witnesses. The autopsy report was not released to the public. And Bono had shown himself to be something of a thorn in the side of officials in Washington, which is probably all the more reason for the lapdogs who call themselves journalists to have dummied it up. Now, for Americans, the new revelations can be found buried away and ignored by respectable people in the U.S. supermarket tabloid Globe of April the 14th, which hit the news racks on April the 4th. It was said to have been gathered by investigator Bob Fletcher. Bob Fletcher, age 66, who, according to the Globe, was connected to the case even before Bono died. You see, he also feels partially responsible for what happened to the California congressman. Before Bono's death, Fletcher had been probing the activities of some high-ranking U.S. military and government officials that he claims were raking in millions of dollars from arms and drug deals in Central Asia or Central America and Southeast Asia. He says he sent his shocking findings of corruption involving and including videotaped evidence. He sent that to Sonny Bono. He sent that information to Sonny Bono, people. Now, he says, I later received a call from an assistant in his offices to tell me Sonny had seen my full report and was absolutely livid about the level of corruption that I made him aware of. This is what Fletcher told the Globe. He was going to make it his number one priority when Congress resumed after the Christmas and New Year break. He was going to go after these big names. Now, just 10 days later, I received a call that he was dead. I'd heard it was suspected his offices had been bugged. Tragically, that must have been the case. And there's no doubt in my mind that Sonny was murdered by someone who needed to silence him. The new evidence is the long-suppressed autopsy report itself, which Fletcher obtained and furnished it to the Globe. After reviewing the shocking secret documents, former FBI agent Ted Gunderson tells the Globe that the official version of Sonny Bono's death is hogwash. It's nonsense for anyone to now try to suggest that Bono died because he crashed into a tree. There's zero evidence in this autopsy report or any of these official documents to show that such an accident ever even happened. Instead, there is powerful proof that he was in fact assassinated. This was an evil plot that was carried out at almost perfection by ruthless assassins. Even though two of the online Australian newspapers attribute their article to staff writers, it's the same short article in the Australian Mercury, the Voice of Tasmania, and the Daily Telegraph. So there you have it. So now I'm going to play for you this video where Sonny was going in on Janet Reno about her handling of the Branch Davidians and David Koresh. Everyone, please like and share the video. Please, let's get the likes up, people. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Okay, so I'm going to play this video.
my friend, colleague, and member of the full committee, Representative Bono.
Thank you very much. Madam Attorney General, I'm in full agreement with you that your number one concern was the welfare of the innocent children, and I think that's where you should have focused. Now, as far as your decision to approve of gassing the Davidians with the CS gas, apparently your selection, and after hearing a little more testimony, was based on Dr. Salem's advice on the report prepared by the British research team that provided testimony to this panel earlier in this hearing. Is that correct?
I think that Dr. Salem he would have to tell you what he had based on his reports on. He referred to I believe it's referred to as the Hemworth report.
Okay.
But he also expressed to me what he had done in terms of trying to find
But basically, you base your testimony off of Dr. Salem.
I don't base my testimony on Dr. Salem. My testimony is that I consulted with Dr. Salem as part of the process to try to make sure that I did everything to ensure that the gas would not produce permanent harm to children or the elderly.
Was that the only study you did?
That was the person that I talked to. I also consulted because they were there at the same time with the commander.
Part of the British study that was testified here, they gave us descriptions of symptoms of overexposure of the CS, producing excessive salivation, congestion of the nose wall and the pharynx, a feeling of suffocation, and first and possibly second degree burns in sensitive people. The report further quotes the U.S. Army Chemical Research and Development Center that they know of no laboratory studies that have ever been conducted with CS that have been utilized on children as subjects. They also state that the Army databases contain virtually every study on CS that has ever been conducted by any government or private facility in the world. Knowing that your first concern was for the children, I find it difficult to understand how after extensive, exhaustive research, you fail to uncover the following information that I uncovered in just one day. A report contained in the Journal of American Medical Association dated August 4th, 1989, that states, I quote, inhalation and toxicology studies at high levels of CS exposure have demonstrated its ability to cause chemical pneumonitis and fatal pulmonary edema. According to an ear and nose and throat surgeon that I talked to, pulmonary edema is caused when the mucous membrane is irritated. It secretes mucus, which in children and infants plugs up the bronchi. They thus drown in their own saliva and mucus. As soon as the child breathes the fumes, the process begins. Soon after that, the child has little lungs left to breathe and dies. I find it impossible to believe that the most powerful law firm in the country, the Department of Justice, at your disposal, you could not find this information out. That I found out in one day with 2 staff members. I recall you saying that the buck stops here, but this information is here. It wasn't that hard to obtain. I talked to a few doctors. Edema is well known. The danger of edema and CS gas is pretty well known with just about every physician. So I can't believe that you did extensive studies on this and didn't come up with the same data that I came up with in merely one day. And I can promise you that I can come up with a lot more. So I'm sorry to say, Madam Attorney General, that I think you failed there. And if you care to respond, please do. But I think that it's a responsibility of the Attorney General to, in cases like this, to research every bit of evidence. And if there is contra evidence, then the error should be on the side of the children.
Sir, what we did was to consult with the foremost toxicologist in the country. Subsequently, other people raised the concern We consulted with other experts trying to pursue every possible lead, and we will continue to. I'm sure if you had this information, you would have questioned the experts when they were here and gotten their responses.
I understand that, but that's not an answer. I'm sorry. I mean, you only talked with Dr. Salem. My point is
I'm sorry, sir.
there were several people that had this information, and that should have been researched
Mr. Bono,
before they
your
were gassed.
time has expired. Mr. Shabbat?
May I just address that? Because I
yes,
think
ma'am,
he
you may.
said I only talked to Dr. Salem, and what I've tried to explain is what we have done is any new piece of information has been developed, we have tried to pursue it, and the experts are still telling us, sir, after pursuing it, and I'm sure if you had that information, you would have presented it to the experts when they testified before the committee, but we will continue to pursue absolutely every lead we can to ensure the use of non-lethal means whenever possible.
She was full of shites, and let me tell you something. All she was doing was deflecting and gaslighting. She didn't give any straightforward answers. Like when he asked her, is that the only person you spoke to, the only researcher you spoke to or whatever, or the only study you looked at? That's a yes or no. All you had to do is say yes or no. She went on trying to explain. And also, not only that, I like how she kept telling him, I'm sure if you had that information, you would have asked the experts when they were here. You would have questioned them. No, she should question the experts. She's the one who got the experts and went and found them. She should have questioned them. Now, common sense will tell you that it's very important to find out the effects of the gas that they used, those CS canisters that they deployed into the building. It was very important that they find out the effects of those before they used it. That's how those children died. And there was at least 12 children in there, I believe. And so common sense should have told her that was something she needs to look further into. She said she talked to Dr. Sullivan or whoever the doctor was that she spoke to. When he asked her, is that the only one you talked to? She went on trying to mayo-splain and just going around, beating around the bush. And then she told him at least twice that if he'd known this information prior. Let me tell you something. Here's what the thing that she fails to, take accountability for. It didn't matter when Sonny got the information because it wasn't Sonny's call. It was her call. She was the attorney general. So even if he didn't have the information previous to ask the experts when they were there, he got it after the fact. And the reason he got it after the fact was to prove a point of how easy it was to find this information, which she clearly didn't do. Because had she done so, just done a little bit of research herself and used a little bit of common sense and critical thinking skills, if she in fact had them, she would have known that it was absolutely dangerous to use that gas on those children and on the people in their compound, periods, that it would result in death, the loss of life. She should have known that. But she didn't want to accept accountability. And that was a terrible mistake. I don't even think it was a mistake. I think she just didn't give a crap. That's what I think. I think she absolutely knew it was dangerous. I think she just didn't give a crap. And I think that our government didn't give a crap because I think they wanted to kill David Koresh because David Koresh was a separatist. He was saying that he was Jesus, was the Messiah. And he had the Branch Davidians. Well, that's what they say he said. As I recall from research I did, he never said that. But that's what they put out that he said, that he was Jesus or whatever. But at the end of the day, he was a separatist. And as we know, our government doesn't like separatists. Okay, that's what they don't like. And so those people to them are the equivalent of terrorists. So I absolutely think that they wanted him dead and all of his followers dead. And I think they went there with the full plan of killing them. That's my opinion. I think they went there to kill them. I think she knew that gas was dangerous and she didn't give a crap. And that's why she allowed it to be used. And that's why she didn't like the questions that Sonny was asking her because everyone else gave her a pass. No one else questioned her judgment, but he did. He was making political enemies and people were getting upset because of things that he was bringing forward. And also, let's not forget about the USDA, which is another big time organization, right? Just like the FDA, okay? Just like Big Pharma. So when he was going against them and calling them out and exposing them on certain things, right? This creates enemies, silence enemies, who don't tell you to your face that you're their enemy or who don't come out and boldly and, blatantly say things. But behind closed doors, they're angered that you talk too much, that you dare to question them and their authority. Like, who do you think you are? You're someone who needs to be silenced. Now, that's just my opinion, but these are things that happen. So with that all being said, I absolutely think Sonny Bono was murdered, i.e. assassinated for political reasons, okay? And there was also speculation years ago, as I recall, that they said that they believed the Russian mob had something to do with it. Like these were maybe the hitmen or whatever. And I also found it very interesting, like I told you, that his wife would come out and say, oh, well, he was on painkillers. He had an addiction to painkillers, and that gave him bad judgment, which led to the accident. How does she know what led to the accident? I'm just saying, didn't they do a toxicology report when they did the autopsy report? Now, they never released the autopsy report to the public. I find that very interesting, because usually when something like this happens, they release the autopsy report to the public. Even with the deaths of Nicole Brown Simpson, OJ's wife, and Ronald Goldman, their autopsy reports were released because I've seen them. So with that, John Benet Ramsey. So with that all being said, how come that autopsy report was not made public? Likely because it was not going along with the narrative that they were putting out that he ran into that tree. Now, before I close out on this broadcast, let me just read this to you. This is information. I have already said some of this, but this is information that came out. On January the 5th of 1998, Sonny Bono died while skiing at a Nebraska ski resort. Was this an accident or murder? Sonny was he was not only an excellent skier, but the injuries showed that Sonny was hit over the head 3 to 4 times with a blunt object, something like perhaps a pistol, while someone else likely held his arms down to keep him from struggling. Evidence shows that Sonny likely put up a fight and possibly broke one of the assailant's noses before his arms were held down. Now, evidence at the crime scene appears to show that one of the assailants was likely left-handed and that the fractured bones had a curved configuration. Now, a businessman by the name of Bob Fletcher had merged his business with Sonny Bono's. Fletcher had merged his toy-making company with a company that made watches. Visa USA Incorporated was alleged to be a covert operational front for U.S. arms sales and mercenary training. A man by the name of Gary Best was said to have tried to get into the business, but he was refused. Now, Fletcher was also an investigator, and he was said to have given a report that involved the CIA and drugs that led back to specific big-name U.S. officials and military personnel. Now, 10 days later, he was found dead. Sonny, that is. Now, Sonny also had called Bob's office, and some speculate that Congressman Bono had attracted the attention of people who did not want to be exposed. A 5-page autopsy report by Dr. David E. Palisari concluded that the death was by craniocerebral injuries due to blunt force trauma. So anyway, they said by blunt force trauma. Sonny Bono appeared to have been ambushed and beaten to death with a billy club or similar object. People who hit objects like trees face first normally have severe brain injuries from the organs rebounding back to the skull. Sonny had no smashed ribs, no broken knees, no neck trauma or hand injuries that would come from trying to avoid a collision with a tree. Also, signs that he actually hit the tree, such as bark impressions on his face or plant debris on his clothing, were not even visible to Fletcher, according to Fletcher. Now, it looked as if someone staged this collision with the tree. And also, it's important to note that his goggles were not smashed or damaged at all, as they likely would have been had he actually collided with a tree. Also, he had no injuries to his back, yet his clothes on the back of his clothes were drenched in blood. Now, this may have come from an assailant as Sonny struggled to fight back. The autopsy report mentioned an L-shaped tear on the back of Bono's black and purple fila jacket. The tear was likely the result of a struggle. And this appears to be a murder, not just some ski accidents. Okay. Queen Candy J says goggles still intact. It was a huge red flag. Absolutely. Absolutely. Misfit says facts. Okay. So this is all crazy, people. So there you have it. And that's absolutely what I think it was. I absolutely think that it was, in fact, an assassination. Okay. And here's what I read a few years ago, that they believe, and I can't remember who gave this report, but they said they believe that there were these Russian mafia hitmen who had been hired to kill him, and that they believe they were on the ski slopes with baseball bats, and they caught him off guard when he was by himself, ambushed him, and beat him to death with baseball bats. And as you know, if you know anything about the mafia, that is a tactic when they beat someone to death. They use baseball bats, and the bruising and the injuries that he had were would match that type of death, but not so much so as colliding with the tree. And if you ask me, perhaps they got the idea to make it look like he collided with the tree. Maybe they got that idea from the fact that Michael Kennedy had been killed that way just less than a week before. So maybe that's what gave them the idea. Okay? They murdered that man. No skin evidence. He was going to open Pandora's box, and they did not want it open. Yes. And at the end of the day, Fletcher seems to think that, Fletcher seems to think that his house had been bugged, or his office at least had been bugged. And if that were true, and it could likely was, then that's how they would know that he had that report that Fletcher gave him. So that's all really crazy, trying to make it look like a serial killing. Mayo hitman crime. Oops, serpent rising, Henry Johnson. So there you have it, people. I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I would like to thank you all for tuning in to Queen Ahmadiyyah TV Presents True Crimes. So stay tuned, because there's going to be more stories coming out. And I'm not only going to just be on this channel on Saturdays, just so you know. I'm going to be going on here frequently. And the next time I come back, we're going to talk about the death of another whistleblower. Okay? Gary Webb, or Terry Webb. We're going to be talking about him on the next episode of True Crimes. Okay, so everyone, please like and share the video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you have not done so already, be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all. Don't forget to follow the Queen on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah, also on Instagram at divine_goddess_27. And you can find me on Twitter at dgoddess27, and also on Brighton and Patreon at Queen Ahmadiyyah. Okay, so with that all being said, people, yes, his name was Gary Webb. Okay, this is the person I'm going to be talking about. He was also a whistleblower. So with that all being said, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the rest of this night. Moderators, for all of my moderators, there's a meeting tomorrow at 12. There's a meeting tomorrow at 12, and I'm going to be sending out the links for you to join the Zoom. Okay, I'm going to be sending those out tonight for you to join the Zoom. But make sure you tell the other mods who are not in the chat, please let them know that there is in fact going to be a meeting for the mods at 12 tomorrow, 12 p.m. Okay, so thank you everyone, and until next time, Royal Family, I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.